And hello there.
Look who it is.
Look at who it is. I haven't seen you in so long.
As I live and breathe.
Oh, wait, I tipped my thing.
Matthew.
Look at me.
There you are.
So our title sequence is looking pretty good.
I think it looks great. Yeah, I think you did a lovely job.
So big question for you. I understand you're schwitzing today. A little schwitzing in New York?
It's pretty hot in New York. I know it's hot in a lot of different places around the country. It's also very hot here. It's really humid. I decided I'd actually wear a shirt for this, not a t-shirt, but like a shirt. I didn't want to. I'm fairly uncomfortable.
Okay, I'm glad you brought up shirts. I'm glad you brought up shirts because I wanted to talk to you about that. But first, I want to greet the people who are here watching us. We do love to hear from you. Comments. Please let us know who you are, where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from our audience. But the question I wanted to ask you is, in doing these shows, I've noticed that I have almost exclusively patterned shirts. So okay. I need some clothes advice from you.
You're just asking the guy in the plain black shirt. Get a plain black shirt.
Okay. Plain black shirt. I mean, okay, I was wearing a plain black shirt in some of these, but because I have a white background, it seemed like when I wore a plain black shirt, something happened with the exposure on my camera where my entire head just turned white, this big white, bright blob. So
yeah, you don't want that. That's not really
not a good look for me.
No.
So tonight, we're going to be talking about Last Man Standing.
Yes.
I know I have some food to talk to you about.
I have food. I have food we can talk about.
I have some good. I have some bad. I had some bad experiences this week.
All across the board, you're saying? Like not just with the food that you made? But with the films that you watched as well?
No. I didn't have a bad experience with the films, but I think you might be surprised at some of the thoughts and feelings I have about some of it. So
I'm very interested to hear your thoughts. We haven't talked about this together yet.
No, it's actually kind of rough because we watched the movies and you and I we've been getting together during the week and talking about movies and food, which is why we wanted to do this.
Well, this is an extension of that same conversation anyway.
Yeah, but now when we get together, just the two of us not on the show, we sit there with nothing to talk about.
So we have to be careful.
We're saving it for the show.
We have to be very boring in our conversations pre-show because then there's no spark. Let's face it.
Yeah, there's no
spark. That incredible magic that can only come from a first-time encounter.
Yeah. So, so this week we are talking about Last Man Standing, and Monica in LA is here. Hello, Monica. Thank you for watching us.
Thanks for tuning in.
I hope you had a chance to watch the movie or that you'd already seen the movie. Now, I had not seen Last Man Standing.
Can I stop for a second? Are we launching it? Because we should maybe
we can
know what it is. Just say.
Go ahead.
No. I don't want to tell you how to talk because you know how to talk.
No, I'm passing the baton.
Well, we're talking about the film Last Man Standing from 1996.
Yes.
I just to tell people what it is.
Let people know what we're talking about.
They don't know what this movie is.
Should we show them the poster?
Well, I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Here we go. Okay, give us a little historical background here, Tony.
Okay, well, this was a not very successful movie when it came out. It didn't make a lot of money. Directed by a very well-known action-oriented filmmaker who done a lot of classic 70s and '80s action movies, including The Warriors, 48 Hours, and a lot of other cool movies. Walter Hill. Yes, exactly. I don't think I saw this in the theater. I think I saw this on cable when it first came through cable. I chose it because you didn't really know about this movie, and I picked it to see because I wanted to see it again and revisit it. Also because it's famously, what it is famous for is being an adaptation of another movie, a Japanese movie called Yojimbo, directed by Akira Kurosawa and starring Toshiro Mifune. And there's an interesting lineage of movies that are all connected in the long chain that we'll talk about. So that's in a nutshell what this movie is. It's a gangster film. Safe to say, yeah?
Yeah,
a gangster action film.
Yes.
And starring at the time, Bruce Willis was probably one of the biggest stars in the world. I would guess. I don't know the exact stats at that time, but I think he was riding really high when he made this movie. And I've always been kind of interested in Walter Hill, so I was very curious to revisit this movie.
All right. Now, I didn't know anything about it, and I did not know that it was a remake of Yojimbo. And I did not know the lineage. You know, we watched 3 movies this week because of this. We watched this, we watched Yojimbo, and Fistful of Dollars.
And another movie, in fact, which is also tied to this.
Which I didn't see. Which was that?
There's a Coen Brothers movie called Miller's Crossing.
Right, that's right. I didn't watch that one.
It's also kind of a version of this same story.
Do you know what other movies are considered to be sort of remakes of this?
These are the big 4. You've got Yojimbo, Fistful of Dollars, which was the first Leone Western with Clint Eastwood.
Right.
That was like in I should look that up. I should know exactly. Yojimbo was like 1963 or something. Fistful of Dollars was about a year after that. They're connected, but it's a weird story because all of this, in fact, starts with a novel called Red Harvest, a Dashiell Hammett novel.
Yes.
Who, now we're getting into your territory as a mystery detective writer and an aficionado of this stuff. This is kind of, and somebody who knows a lot about the Western genre. We've got all these different genres in this lineage of movies, which I don't know, I think is just a fascinating thing to kind of unravel. Even if these movies weren't fun to watch or fun to watch to great, is how I'm putting this. In the level of film we're talking about here.
But then we also have, I made us a little bigger because when we're smaller like that, I can't quite see you as well.
That was what was working about it.
Oh, okay. I'm going to make,
No, that's fine.
I can't read your facial expression, so I'm not quite sure how stupid whatever it is I'm saying is.
Now I have to make nice faces.
No, you don't have to. Yeah. No, but see, there's 3 other movies that I think are really worthy of mention, which are a movie called Inferno or Desert Heat, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Okay.
There is Django, not Django Unchained, but Django, a movie called Django, an Italian Western starring Franco Nero.
Franco Nero started that character, yeah.
Which is now a must-see for me. And finally, The Warrior and the Sorceress, starring David Carradine.
You just totally destroyed my mind. I don't know what's happening right now.
Taking place on some foreign planet. Just check out the poster for Warrior and the Sorceress.
Okay, hold on one second.
and throw that up there for our viewers.
Are you saying that Django was a kind of a remake of this story?
That's what I read on a Wikipedia article on
Wow.
all of the remakes of Kurosawa movies.
Of Kurosawa movies, but not necessarily Yojimbo.
No, they listed Django as Yojimbo.
Interesting, because when did Fistful? Let me see. Fistful of Dollars came out. Fistful of Dollars. 64. Django was like 2 years later. That's really interesting that they do another Italian Western with the same plot. But I guess how many plots were there, really, when you think about it?
Right.
You know, I mean, you had the plot for Rio Bravo, then the plot for this. That's about it. All right. So, curious. Did you ever read Dashiell Hammett? Did you ever read either
I did not read Red Harvest.
Okay.
But now I'm going to.
I started reading it. I'm like, 50 pages in. Fascinating. Interesting. Let's just talk about for a second, like the weird legal chain of all this stuff. So you got Red Harvest, which Yojimbo Kurosawa adapted straight up. Just they took Red Harvest and they made a samurai movie.
Right.
Didn't credit Dashiell Hammett. Never said anything about Red Harvest in the movie. I love Yojimbo, but I think it's a bit of a shame that they didn't. Because then 2 years later or a year later, Sergio Leone said, I have a great idea. Let's take the samurai movie and turn it back into a Western. And then what happened was Kurosawa sued Sergio Leone and famously said, Fistful of Dollars is a fine film and one that I made.
Wow. And
so he actually won the case and made millions off the film because it was recognized as a ripoff of Yojimbo.
And did Sergio Leone raise the Red Harvest question in the case?
No, I don't think it came up. It was not. Neither of these films credited Red Harvest. And then what was interesting was around this, like after this, Red Harvest for a long time was a movie that everybody wanted to make in Hollywood. It was a book that they tried to crack as it was, but never really got to until Last Man Standing, which is, from what I can see now, much more like Red Harvest than not. It's like the book. It follows the book pretty closely. But Last Man Standing says it's an adaptation of Yojimbo and credits Kurosawa with the story, also leaving Red Harvest out, even though it's a gangster movie in the 1920s, just like Red Harvest is. It's very strange.
And Kurosawa approved of Last Man Standing.
Well, they credited him and he got paid, so he approved it. And then you got Coen Brothers, who made Miller's Crossing, right, in 96, I want to say, which was an amalgam of both Red Harvest and another book by Dashiell Hammett called The Glass Key, where The Glass Key is all about a mob boss and his right-hand person and the affair that this happening behind the mob boss's back. And Red Harvest is all about these two gangs and one lone guy who's kind of pitting these two gangs against each other.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's dive into the movie. And how should we do this? Because in preparation for this, what I did was I watched Yojimbo and then Fistful of Dollars and then Last Man Standing, so that I was following the chronology.
Right.
Which was...
Had you seen any of these movies before?
I had not seen any of them.
Okay.
And knowing that they were all tied together, I was looking very specifically for for themes, for places that were the same, for places where there were departures.
Right.
So I'm gonna jump right in and say something which may make you want to smack me in the face.
Let's go. I'm getting ready to get angry.
Loved Yojimbo.
Well,
Phenomenal.
okay, we're going to be friends. I was a little worried. Okay, so we'll be friends now. We'll be friends.
Really liked Last Man Standing, and really enjoyed watching A Fistful of Dollars from an academic standpoint because we're engaged in this exercise, and was at the same time astounded at how bad a movie it is. I felt.
Wow.
I was
you just came out and called Fistful of Dollars an astoundingly bad movie, is what you just did.
Well,
that's a really bold move into this conversation.
Well, before maybe I'll retract that. Do we know anybody, or do we have close family ties with, or anybody best friends with anybody involved in it?
I'm not going to say that Clint comes over once in a while to hang out and play cards.
You don't hang with Clint, okay?
But maybe
what about any of the other guys, like any of the guys playing the Rojas?
I think we're pretty in the clear. I mean, I want to just say just for those listeners out there who are listening, I don't agree with him at all on this.
Okay, that's fine. This is going to happen sometimes. Okay. But I thought, I thoroughly enjoyed watching it, but the acting, it was, by and large, I thought, and here, let me back up a little bit. I felt that the Japanese acting, which was
you mean the style of acting that was in
the style of acting, right? Seems to me to come from a tradition, whereas the stuff that I felt like I was watching in Fistful of Dollars felt like we're going to do racist caricatures of what we think American Westerners were with the Baxters, and racist caricatures of the Mexicans. And I loved it, and just was, but almost, I'm not going to put it down with The Room, but yeah, I really thought a lot of it was, the acting was just. Okay. But educate me, because
there's really nothing to say about that ultimately. I mean, luckily we're not really talking about Fistful of Dollars here. We're talking about Last Man Standing. I cannot and will not sit here and try to justify Fistful of Dollars as a viewing that makes any sense with today's lenses on it. I understand this is an odd watch in certain respects. The acting has nothing to do with why I like that film.
Right. Okay. But to get back to
that, I think, having just rewatched, I've seen Yojimbo a lot. I studied that movie in school, and I've watched it a lot. So I didn't watch it again this week, but I hadn't seen Fistful of Dollars in a while. And I put it on again before watching Last Man Standing. And, I totally hear you. And now I can see the film through that vibe. I mean, one of my handicaps in a way is that I watch films very much through a technical. I definitely get immersed in technique and in pulling off things just in a cinematic way through shots or ways that composition works. I mean, I'll turn the sound off and watch films a lot just to see that,
Right.
That's where I really like Fistful of Dollars most. I was actually this time pretty partial to what Clint Eastwood was doing as a mythic character in a story. I thought he sold it, and mostly through his physicality, mostly through the fact that he actually was doing and could do a lot of the stuff that he did in this movie.
Yes.
The photography, I can't talk about with you if you are going to be going down like not liking that part of it, because
no, I don't know nearly as much about that as you do either. So I'm not going after it in terms of the cinematography.
Oh, I mean, yeah, but you don't have to know anything about it to be kind of amazed by what you were looking at. I mean, is the acting what you see when you? This is an interesting question, because it wouldn't occur to me to talk about the acting in a spaghetti western. And I think spaghetti western is actually not even a term that is probably appropriate or even right to use anymore. In an Italian western from that period, okay. First of all, they had the handicap there of no live recorded sound.
Right.
You know that, like, everything was dubbed.
Yeah.
So you're getting odd performance quality in any Italian film from that period, because do you know why everything was dubbed? Here's a why do all those Italian films from that period sound like they're just badly dubbed? And they are. Why is that?
I don't know. Why is it?
Because it wasn't like that in France or
They didn't have sound, it was a new industry and they didn't have sound stages.
They had sound stages, they had microphones, they had stuff, but the overriding reason was because it was an international film market, and an international film community in Europe, which meant that they were using stars from all over the world, and they didn't speak the same languages.
Gotcha.
So oftentimes they would not even be speaking lines from a script. They'd be saying numbers. They'd be going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then they would dub in whatever dialogue people wanted. So judging the acting is a little bit tough, because the performances themselves, so you don't know who's responsible for that performance necessarily. The fact that they were not very sympathetic group of people in the film by and large, though, is I can't speak to that. That's true. That is not something that aged very well about that film.
Okay, so if we jump forward from like Yojimbo, sort of hop over Yojimbo into Last Man Standing, we get back to, again in Last Man Standing, what I felt was a very stylized kind of acting in terms of playing the bad guys, playing the Italians, playing the Irish, but it felt more conscious to me. Those a purposeful use of the stereotype, and playing with it, as opposed to
I absolutely. I mean, I totally agree with you on that, because my biggest takeaway from Last Man Standing is that goddamn ensemble. That is one of the greatest groups of actors, character actors from that period in one movie. It was fantastic.
And yet, as wonderful as everybody is in it, Christopher Walken walks in and puts them all to shame.
Totally disagree with you. I mean, I love him, but I think the hero is, for me, undoubtedly, and I'm talking about a movie like William Sanderson. Ned Eisenberg is great in this movie. Michael Imperioli is great in this movie. Leslie Mann is really great in this movie.
I think they're all great.
Great. David Patrick Kelly destroyed it. Destroyed it for me, and I'll tell you why. It's all about his last speech. His last speech out in the desert, when he's finally saying he's reconfessing his love for this woman and saying, "I'll forgive you everything. We'll just go find her again." Right? Killed me. It had everything in it. But I'm a huge David Patrick Kelly fan, so
He's great. But the actor who we haven't talked about in that movie is Rain or Shine.
You're trying to make me look foolish, and I don't like it. Don't like it.
Rainer Shine is and you've probably met him because he was around in all those voiceover waiting rooms with us, and he plays the gas station attendant.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I don't know him as a person though.
You know? Oh, yeah. You've probably been in rooms with him.
Okay.
100 times you've been in a room with him. And his parents named him Rainer. His last name is Shine, Schein, and his parents named him Rainer.
Well, Rainer, if you're listening, I'm sorry that I don't remember meeting you. If we did, I love your work in the movie.
He's terrific in the movie.
So, okay, okay. I really liked Last Man Standing. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Now, Walter Hill is like a master of the gunfight. There are few directors who can do shootouts as good as
that first shooting.
It's incredible.
Is unbelievable.
Yeah,
phenomenal.
He just knows how to do it. And he's up there with John Woo or, other classic examples of directors who just changed how we look at, how these things are edited. And the sound also, the sound design of those shootouts is fantastic.
Spectacular.
It's fantastic. I gotta say it. It's gotta be said. Bruce Willis, that's my problem.
With the movie?
My problem with the movie. And I
have to say I agree with you there because I do not see any of the stuff that you then do see in the Nakatomi Tower. Because I loved him in Die Hard.
Oh, I love him in Die Hard too. I mean, I'll speak frankly because I don't think Bruce Willis is going to ever give me a job. So what the heck? He's never said anything great about my work. So why should I go to bat for him?
Yeah,
I've loved him in some stuff. I feel like this seemed to be. I found him to be. I found him working alone. I saw him just kind of involved in his own thing in a very kind of. I thought the choice was a little kind of boring, and sometimes it looked like he was like a little kid playing dress up. It literally, to me, it looked like somebody from Bugsy Malone showed up on set and was like pretending to be a tough guy. When you have Christopher Walken and David Patrick, you have some tough.
I'm getting nervous, so I have to.
You got. I just didn't feel that he sold that for me at all, and I thought that was silly. I also gotta say, I think I really felt like I understood why they did the narration, his voiceover narration, because it's kind of a noir trope, right? But I thought that went directly opposed to the idea of the man with no name, the mythic hero.
It humanized him in a way that I was not interested in.
So by comparison, Clint Eastwood is such a more interesting character, even though you don't know anything about what motivates him at all, and you never do.
Yeah.
You only suspect that he has a soft spot somewhere for reuniting this kid and had the mother and the father, cool way that they kind of recreated that in each movie too. They had a different set piece that represented that thing.
But what I loved in Yojimbo is that in Yojimbo, it's the least sentimental on the part of the hero.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just you don't see any of the only way there is warmth there for the woman and the child is because he rescues them. But you don't see any crack in his armor ever. Even after he rescues them, he's, idiots, get out of town, just nasty and rude to them as he's saving them. The There's another thing that I think is interesting about all of the movies. Actually, except for in Yojimbo and in Last Man Standing, everybody else in the movie except the hero is an idiot. Except in Last Man Standing, the Chris Walken character is not an idiot.
Not an idiot.
But
and the sheriff and Bruce Dern's not an idiot.
Not an
He's
idiot either.
made his choice to not do anything one way or another.
Everybody else is, and what is interesting is that in Yojimbo, there's no racial or class difference thing going on because it's all just.
Not that we necessarily, we might not pick up on it though. It might be something that's not something easily to pick up on if you're a Westerner. If you're not.
But we don't see like two different like in Last Man Standing, it's the Irish and the Italians, and then there's the Mexicans across the border. Yeah. And in Fistful of Dollars, it's the Mexicans and they're Americans, right? The Baxters, but they're Americans in Mexico.
That was a little bit unclear due to the dubbing for me. I didn't know what they were trying to tell me there.
Right. But I kept trying to figure out the people he has the first shootout with, where he sort of stakes his claim and makes his point, is with the Baxters.
Yeah.
And I kept trying to figure out how
I think that's an American name.
I don't think the Baxters can be Mexicans.
I doubt that they were in this context.
But we're in Mexico in the movie.
Yeah. Well, yes, we are. Yeah, we are. I'm trying to think. I think Good, the Bad, and the Ugly takes place in an undisclosed mythic West, but this one is Mexico. It's supposed to be.
I'm drinking this brown liquid in honor of Last Man Standing because that's what.
There's a lot of brown liquid in that movie.
A lot of brown liquid in Last Man Standing.
So. I'm really glad you liked Last Man Standing. It has a lot of style. It's really stylish. Bet Bowles has something to say. I had to use captions tonight because Bruce did a lot of mumbling. Bruce Dern is that Bruce Willis. Yes, Bruce Willis mumbled incoherently throughout it. I don't think he was saying anything particularly interesting anyway. But he did mumble, and he looked like a kid. I didn't think it was believable. I just didn't.
One thing I loved, and we talked about this a little bit, but I love the weapon, the evolution of the weapons through the three movies as the talisman. Mm-hmm. That in Yojimbo, he's a samurai. That denotes skill, and the arch bad guy, the one who we know there's going to be a showdown with at the end, has a pistol, and that's a symbol of breaking with tradition, of the future of technology, and showing, but tradition is going to win out, and on the sword as symbol of honor. And then
the gun was perceived as a dishonorable weapon.
Right, because you can shoot somebody from far away. Then we get to Fistful of Dollars, and the pistol is the honorable weapon because you still need skill. You need to be close with a pistol. You have to face off.
Like it's actually harder to do well.
Right, and the pistol becomes the Winchester rifle, where you can dishonorably pick somebody off from far, far away.
You mean the
pistol from Yojimbo is in Last Man Standing a rifle, and the sword in Yojimbo becomes the 6-shooter in Fistful of Dollars.
Yes.
And then you get to Last Man Standing, and the samurai sword is transformed into Bruce Willis's 245. And Walken has the Tommy gun, which just indiscriminately,
That was very smart in each film. I thought the progression of that.
Very interesting. Here's a good comment from somebody who is pointing out correctly that if we weren't discussing Last Man Standing, I would not be drinking brown liquid. No, that would never happen.
It's all about tying these things in together.
Yeah, it's part of our job. That's why I'm doing this. It also lets me write off a bottle of Maker's Mark as a business expense. So
now, have you've seen Miller's Crossing, right?
I saw it long ago. I didn't see it. I haven't seen it recently in preparation for this.
This was weird for me because I had seen it before, obviously, and I loved the movie, and but hadn't seen it in a while, and I hadn't put it in the framework of these films or of Dashiell Hammett. I mean, I knew it was based on those writers from that period, but to see it in part of this chain, it's really remarkable because it's the same stories, it's the same ideas, and you see 4 different sets of filmmakers making this thing they're all equally passionate about, and their passions all come out in completely different ways. It was really fascinating. It was really fascinating to do. Now, one really cool thing, a couple of things that I thought that the Coen brothers had came up with, had actually thought of, not true, and they don't credit Dashiell Hammett any more than any of these other people did.
Really?
Remember the line, "What's the rumpus?"
Yeah.
From Miller's Crossing? I always thought that was a Joel or Ethan Coen line. It's in the first page of Red Harvest. "What's the rumpus" is said all the time in that book.
Really? See, all these years I thought it was a reference to Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh, no, it's Dashiell Hammett.
Oh, okay.
Red Harvest itself, was it The Glass Key or Red Harvest? No, it was in Red Harvest. Blood Simple, which is the title of the Coen brothers' first movie, is also a phrase from that book. Am I boring you? Is your neck hurting? I don't know what to say.
I'm looking at the list of. No,
I'm
looking at the list
about what I think.
No,
you just got to trash a great Italian film, and then you're done. You don't want to.
No, I'm looking at a list of more questions to ask you, so you can wax eloquent on this stuff. Because there was something else that you talked about that's in all 3 movies.
The ramp. Yeah, the ramp. That was strange that they have it. Okay, it's a set piece. The ramp is this set piece that's in Yojimbo. It's a
plot point. It's a plot device, right?
It's involved in how he escapes from a situation, but it's also it's also part of a big set, and it's an action set piece. So the ramp is like part of this whole sequence.
Yeah,
and it's a very famous sequence, and the main character gets his ass kicked. He gets really badly beaten up by bad guys and left for dead. And it's in this kind of warehouse setting with this ramp that takes these barrels of sake, I guess, out of the warehouse and into wagons and stuff. And he uses that ramp in a way to escape from his situation. And the Fistful of Dollars does the same thing. Yeah. Now, that effect in Fistful is unbelievable. Yeah. So I don't care about your acting right now, sir. That barrel of whiskey hitting those 2 guys is one of the most messed up things I've ever seen in a movie. It's bad.
It's wonderful.
And then you have
they have a ramp in yeah. But they just have a ramp.
It's just like, oh, here's a ramp, but it doesn't have anything to do with anything.
And then they go do other things. But at least we got a ramp in the movie.
Maybe there was something shot with the ramp and then didn't make the cut. Yeah. For time or something. I don't know.
Yeah. But we have a ramp.
Yeah. What's also interesting is that Last Man Standing is actually shot very much more like a Kurosawa movie. Fistful of Dollars isn't shot anything like that. It's all very wide angle lenses.
Now, talk about this thing that they really go that Sergio Leone goes really crazy with, and he goes crazy with it in Good, the Bad, and the Ugly too, which is the from the wide to the extreme close up of the eyes.
Yeah.
Repeatedly.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of moves that he kind of, either perfected or put his own spin on or came up with that were, it's, I think the impact of that movie on a big screen would also just be tremendous. I've never seen it on a big screen, but I would really love
the
to.
Cheroot is great too. Clint's Cheroot through the movie, which he loses eventually and then gets back at the end before is his symbol of power.
Right. It's like the hat in Miller's Crossing.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other films that are a little bit attached. I'm just remembering now. We are brothers. We are indeed brothers.
Yeah.
Another Clint Eastwood movie. What the heck is that one called? I'm embarrassed to say I'm forgetting the name of it. It's the one where he rides into hell. It's a very mythic.
Oh, yeah. Not Hang 'Em High.
Totally blanking. That's terrible. It's an amazing movie.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites of his. It's the one where he's whipped and whipped and whipped somebody and he comes back.
Yep. It's not Hang 'Em High, is it?
No.
Why am I not seeing it right here? This is ridiculous. High Plains Drifter.
Yes. HPD.
High Plains Drifter.
That is a spectacular movie.
That's a very that's in this pantheon too. It's very similar kind of film to these.
There's another theme in the movies that I want to talk about is the crossroads.
Yeah.
Which they in Yojimbo, he throws a stick to decide which way to go.
Yeah.
We don't see that particular thing in the other movies, but the crossroads shows up in Last Man Standing in a different context. It's where they have the meeting.
Right.
Something I noticed about that meeting, at the end of the meeting, everybody leaves to go back to town, right? Because there's only one location in the movie. There's the town. There's the little house outside of town where the woman is kept. Mm-hmm. And then they go from the town, they say, we're going to meet and make the exchange at the crossroads. Now, I don't know why they're all in the town.
And
I don't know why they all have to leave. It's like they all go, boop, boop, boop. We're going to go to the crossroads and make the exchange. And then after the exchange, they all go back to the town. But they all leave the crossroads in four different directions. Those cars peel off in four different directions from the crossroads.
Back
to town.
To me, that's the kind of thing that I bet you is on purpose. Like, I think that's what makes the movie take place in purgatory. Because that's really, I think, really the secret to all of this is that we're in hell, and it's proven by the first quote. It's the first thing he says in the movie. Last Man Standing. Do you remember what he says? It's the first thing he says in the narration.
What's the first line?
The first line is, "It's a funny thing. No matter how low you sink, there's still a right and wrong. You always end up choosing. You go one way so you can try to live with yourself. You go the other, you'd still be walking around, but you're dead and you don't even know it.
Okay.
He changes tense. But you go one way, you're going the other way, you go. And then he says, no, he doesn't change tense, but he actually seems to be talking to you and about himself.
Right. And what I didn't realize is, although it's not visual, that's the crossroads. They do have the crossroads he talks about the crossroads at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
That is spectacular. And
I really feel like it's like this vision of purgatory. It's just, there is no morality at all. It's just this wasteland. It's just there's not even any like earth. It's all dust. I mean, it's just this constant stream of this, dust and amorality. And I think that they really constructed that movie as he's dead. This is like the afterlife.
Right. I missed, speaking of the afterlife, there was so much less of the Undertaker in Last Man Standing. He's such a huge figure in the other two movies.
Yeah, I think they just kind of pushed it over to Bruce Dern and the sheriff character in Last Man Standing, because they ended up spending most of their time together. I mean, he hung out with William Sanderson, who was the barkeep, a little bit, but they didn't have the kind of friendship that they did in the other two.
I love William Sanderson so much.
What a career he's had.
Yeah, crazy career.
Yeah, he's really fantastic. Again, the ensemble work in it is really great, which makes me a little sad about Bruce Willis in the middle of this. I read an interview with Walter Hill, who was too much of a gentleman to say anything really negative, but I read between the lines, and he seemed to imply that Bruce Willis gave him a hard time, and that this was not a lot of fun to shoot with him.
Yeah, I saw that quote.
Considering how great he is with actors, in this very genre kind of arch kind of way, but he's really good with these character actors. I really wish that somebody else, like, I was thinking, like, who would you cast? Because we both agree. I think the movie would have improved by another star. Who would you have rather seen?
Other than me?
Yeah, because in '95 you were 96. You were at the height of your physical powers. There was a sight to behold. Don't be shy.
Yes. Yes, indeed. That's a tough one. Dustin Hoffman would have been interesting. That would have been an interesting way to go.
Yeah, Peter O'Toole. I don't know.
Peter O'Toole would have been interesting.
I was thinking about it. Like, I imagine this movie with Michael Madsen in that part, or Lance Henriksen, or somebody who actually, was kind of a badass in real life.
In real life, Yeah,
and didn't have to kind of act that gravitas, which I felt Bruce Willis kind of straining with.
Yeah, Michael York could have been.
Mic drop. That was a mic drop.
Yeah.
I mean, but imagine that movie with somebody who filled that part in a different, more interesting way. I just think it would. I blame him. Poor Walter Hill. This movie. The sad part is, this movie was like the last big shot Walter Hill got as a director for a really long time. Like, really? It underperformed at the box office. It really didn't make money.
It only made like $18 million.
Yeah, and it cost like
$40 million.
It didn't make its international gross back. I don't know. Maybe I looked at old stats, and with rentals, it's recouped more. I don't know, but it was a disappointment, and it really hurt his career. He was coming off a string of huge hits. And it's sad. Like this business is pretty tough, man. It's really evident. You just make one movie that doesn't make the money back, and they forget, Southern Comfort, Wild Bill, and all these other great films that he made,
right?
The Warriors and 48 Hours, and no. He's a man of his time. He's a man of his time. He's still around. He's still producing. He's also interesting, known as the producer. He produced the whole Alien franchise. Did you know that?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So he's doing great, but I just think I'd like to see. He's one of these filmmakers like John Carpenter, who I just really would just love nothing more than to see them given some money to go make a classic, stripped down movie like they used to make.
Right.
Yeah, he's really cool.
I want to ask you a technical question about towards the end of Last Man Standing, during the big shootout is it in the hotel or where he's going up and down the stairs?
Yeah. Or the brothel.
Brothel, right. In that big shootout, there are quite suddenly 2 or 3 Dutch angles that aren't in other, and they're very sudden and quick and gone. And I can't think of other instances where a Dutch angle is just inserted very quickly into a sequence and then gone, as opposed to, it's usually a slow, dramatic.
I think you'll see them in action sequences sometimes. I mean, there's a lot of cutting in these those shootouts,
Right.
Sometimes you do see them throw in angles, but you're asking why choose
I'm
to do
just
Dutch?
asking if there's a technique or if it was suddenly to change the perspective because Willis is on the ground shooting and it's giving us very quickly that perspective.
There's different reasons why. I mean, I don't know. I would think that it's more of a to sell the where there was, because there were a couple shots where there were quick tilt ups that changed dramatically the angle. Like you'd start on the ground with him and then tilt up dramatically to a door, right?
Right.
Because the way they were angled when they get up to the door, it's actually very crooked.
Right.
And anybody listening, if there is anybody listening, please be someone.
There are people listening.
Dutch angle is just an angle where the camera's crooked like that. But I don't know. I was aware of a couple of them, but I think you pick those things out even quicker than I do. I don't know. A lot of times they'll use Dutch for the internal psychology of the character. But I think with scenes like that, it's more to just keep things feeling very chaotic and unmoored, so you never, like, from one moment to the next, know, like, your equilibrium is always kind of off, and it helps sell the chaos of the fight.
A couple of other things I want to ask about. The thing I thought was really interesting at the beginning of Last Man Standing was the driving into town and the dead horse covered with flies in the middle of the street seemed almost to be saying, we have Westerns and we have the Old West, and those days are over.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
We're in a new world now.
But it's still it's the same thing, but that's interesting. Because I saw it as a reference to the severed hand in the beginning of Yojimbo, because I think it does the same thing as that.
Oh,
But you're also, it does another thing, like what you're saying, that's really smart. Because
yeah,
at the beginning of Yojimbo, he rides into town, this man with no name, the
right,
samurai, and he realizes this is a really messed up town. Like, it's a town run by just gangsters. There's nobody on the level living in this town,
right.
and there's no law and order at all. It's just people shooting each other in the street. It's completely unfamiliar. I don't know what that would be like. The first thing he sees is a dog running down the street with a human hand, a severed hand in it,
Yeah,
and he just runs down the street and disappears. And that's the clue to him that something's very off about
something's not right.
this town. It's like, what town doesn't clean up a dead horse that's right in the middle of the street? Like, it's such a clue that this isn't right here at all. But I love what you're saying about it being like the Old West is dead. It's dead, but it's a riff on that.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. And then the other thing I wanted to ask about was the evolution of the womanizing through the three movies. That in Yojimbo, he is a man alone, and there is no hint of a romantic, nothing. It's no woman, no romance, no sexual tension, no hint of anything. Then there's this hint of it in Fistful of Dollars.
Yeah.
But just a hint, where he rescues the woman and he's holding her and hiding her, and then we get right into it in Last Man Standing.
Yeah, and he rescues three different women. You know, yeah. Of course, and he has
feelings. He's got feelings for one of them.
All women prostitutes in the movie too. Like, it's confusing.
You don't want to talk about the role of women in any of these
1920s gangster movies, for sure. It's a pretty rough time.
Yeah.
That brings up an interesting point. Not to belabor too much the myth stuff, but you love the myth of the Old West. You used to study that in school. Cowboy myth and
well, the ethos that's expressed perfectly in the Virginian, the idea, we live in a democracy, theoretically, or used to, and the idea of all of us are equal in our sort of political philosophy, the American political philosophy, but in our mythology, the Virginian famously says, "No man is my equal until he proves it to me."
Mm-hmm.
And that's our hero.
Right. Well, that's a lot heavier than I was thinking. I didn't. That's sorry. Interesting. No. That's really interesting. It's a different viewpoint on it. I was thinking more. The only other critical thing I have about Last Man Standing, as it links up to Yojimbo, is along with the idea that the narration is, to me, off key for this kind of character. It's like when they remake Halloween and they tell me who Michael Myers was, that he was a troubled child and had abusive parents. The mythic quality of that villain is just gone for me. And as a horror movie, it just doesn't interest me. And I felt like this Last Man Standing was pushing a little bit towards me understanding this person, or wanting me to understand and sympathize with him as somebody who rescues women and does chivalrous things, as opposed to in Yojimbo, chivalry doesn't enter into it. It's purely chess. It's purely outmaneuvering and playing off each other, and as it is in Fistful of Dollars. So like the mythology doesn't totally link up, because like the noir part of Last Man Standing, because there's a lot of noir elements in it.
Right.
To me, noir and that territory is all about really understanding this Freudian psychology, this horrible, these messed up people that are doing these things, these compromised humans making really bad human choices, and getting stuck on their own messed up problems and stuff, you know? Whereas the myths of the West and the samurai myths are completely, they're devoid of that. They don't have that same thing. They're more like Jungian prototypes rather than this kind of Freudian mess.
Honor and justice.
And knowing who this person is unimportant. They represent an ethos rather than a character. Yeah. And trying to put those two things together in Last Man Standing, it was a little bit like the Lego pieces didn't quite snap together there for me a little bit. But I mean, come on, just for the shootouts alone, you gotta give it some credit. I mean,
something that's interesting is one of my favorite contemporary authors of detective and sort of lone wolf fiction. Jack Reacher, the Lee Child, who writes the Jack Reacher series, which they've made a couple of movies out of. Somehow they cast somebody who's 5'2" to play somebody who's 6'5".
I wonder how that happened.
I don't understand how that happened.
I wonder how it happened.
I have not a clue. But the most recent Jack Reacher novel, is a riff on either Red Harvest or all of these, because it's Jack Reacher coming into a town, and he helps an old man and gets involved, and there's one gang that has the east side of town and one gang that has the west side of town.
That's great.
He's got a pit. He ends up getting them to destroy each other. So this, another author who's picking up on that theme. I'm looking at my list of things to. Let's talk about Day for Night and continuity in Fistful of Dollars.
Okay, let's talk. Let me first talk about people that had 15 minutes to make a movie.
Okay, because time and again, it's nighttime and we go somewhere, and it's daytime and we go back and it's nighttime again, and only an hour has passed.
Now you're just hitting it below the belt. They couldn't do it back then. They just couldn't. And frankly, most of the time they don't even do it now. Their Day for Night's gotten a little bit better, and they just throw a really bad digital LUT on stuff at the end, and at least there was some artistry to try to make it work back then.
It's like,
I will say,
middle of the night, I'm leaving, and I ride like the wind through a noonday sun to the nighttime restaurant.
Yeah, you got to kind of overlook that. It's a problem with all the Hammer horror movies too. It's really like a bright day. I can see the clouds and the sun. Yeah, that and the dubbing can kind of get in the way. But I mean, okay. But for pure firepower, and I'm talking about fire effects, Fistful of Dollars fire effects, when they burn that place down at the end.
Oh my God. They must have just said, who's actually willing to get burned up for this movie?
There are no safety protocols. That's one of the remarkable things about watching Leone movies is you're just clearly people are getting hurt just making this movie.
Yeah,
everybody's at risk.
And the laughter from the gunmen when they're shooting the guys coming out of it was almost as if they were intercutting from men running out of a building on fire to the people in the church at the end of Sullivan's Travels laughing at the cartoons. It's like you intercut those two. It's like people just shooting and laughing hysterically like they're watching a Looney Tunes cartoon.
Yeah. Well, it's operatic. It's opera.
It really, okay.
It's opera. I mean,
all right.
It's pretty grandiose.
Some of the makeup was a little like opera makeup, too.
Take it easy. We're talking like 1964. They didn't have, they didn't have the technology for makeup even that they did. His face makeup when he gets beaten up, Clint's makeup is pretty good for that time. It was pretty effective beating on makeup. He looked beat up.
Yes,
he did a great job with getting beat up. That's hard to do. We actually talked about that in Misery, the first thing we talked about.
Yeah.
That was my big takeaway from James Caan's work, was how well he got beat up. That man can get his ass handed to him, and you totally buy it.
So, tell me about your food this week.
I feel a little... I'm disappointed. I let myself down. I didn't make anything special.
Didn't have a good food week?
I ate okay, but I didn't do anything fancy or special. I would like to say something about this pasta breakfast thing.
Yeah.
Maybe just a thing about that. I don't have pictures or anything. But the restaurant Hugo's in LA.
Yep.
There's one in Valley. I think there's a few of them, a couple of them anyway.
Yeah.
Love that place. We go there when I'm in LA, and Adam and you and I, the three brothers, go there. Adam, who is the other brother, we'll be with him on this show too. It'll be three brothers talking at some point. But they have a dish at Hugo's for brunch that's called Pasta Mama, and they have like a Pasta Papa. They have a different pasta names for these things. But it's like it's pasta with eggs scrambled up with kind of hot chili flakes and some Parmesan avocado. It's fantastic. It's really good.
Right.
And I've been making that. I kind of figured out how to make it. It's not hard to do it. But I finally made one that kind of like I want to put my name on. I want to like pasta Tony.
Pasta Tony. Okay, tell me.
Maybe Pasta Tony Mama. So you make Pasta Mama. You have pre-made pasta left over from the night before or whatever that you haven't put sauce on. You quickly reconstitute it in a little boiling like chicken broth or something to get it back in shape, and then you mix it with scrambled eggs. Coat the pasta and you fry it up. But the difference is you take it off and you put crumbled goat cheese, scallions, and the secret weapon is, of course, everything bagel seasoning. Now, if you don't have this, you are now honor bound to go find it. It's a thing that you should keep in your bag with you all the time because it can go on everything. But it's basically if you ever had an everything bagel, it's all the seasoning that's on the everything bagel. So you put this on there, and you're having it tastes like an everything bagel with Pasta Mama included in that.
Oh, I'm gonna do that.
It worked out. It worked out. But that's that's kind of, it's not that exciting.
I wanted to do, during this pandemic time of fear and loathing and loneliness.
Yes.
I wanted to go back to one of the great dishes that our mom made, the enchilada pie that she made.
That was something we grew up eating. That was like every week we'd have that.
Yeah, and I foolishly didn't get her recipe. I thought, I'll find recipes online. And then you and I had a conversation about, you've told me about doing the frico, the cheese in the hot pan, melt it, and it turns into a crisp.
Yeah.
And so then I saw these enchilada pie recipes that call for putting the cheese on top of the enchilada pie.
Yeah.
And I had this idea of making a giant frico in the great cast iron pan that you got me, and then putting the enchilada pie on top of that and putting it into the oven to bake. Okay. So what we have is
before you continue though, when you had that idea, you were pretty proud of yourself, weren't you?
I thought I wasn't proud of myself. I thought I was a genius.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I thought this is going to be one of the greatest things anybody's ever eaten, because you're going to get this enchilada pie with this sort of crispy burnt cheese crust on it. It couldn't nothing could be better.
Come on.
So I made the here's working on the frico, right? Melting it in the pan.
So basically what we're looking at is you frying cheese in a pan right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's frying cheese in a pan.
What kind of cheese is that, Matthew?
It's a Mexican blend.
Which would be what, gorgonzola and brie.
Cheddar and Jack.
And cheddar and
Jack, maybe a little Colby or something in there. I got it from Trader Joe's, where you get the everything but the bagel spice mix.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then I made the enchilada pie.
You haven't explained that yet, so you can explain what that is.
Enchilada pie is layered. The way our mother made it, it was layered tortillas and cheese and salsa and chicken. This recipe, the tortillas were more torn up. So it was a rotisserie chicken that you tear all the meat off of, mix it with cheese, sour cream, sauteed onion, garlic, jalapenos, and throw it all into the pan and bake it. But my idea was to do the frico first and then put these ingredients on top of it, more cheese on top, and bake it. So that's what it looked like when it was finished. And I have to say that the enchilada pie itself was fantastic, and I still have a bunch of it frozen. The idea of the frico on the bottom was an abject failure.
No, really?
Yeah, because what I didn't realize happened is that all of the slightly wetter ingredients on top of it just
won't caramelize.
The cheese did not crisp up, and
have you thought? I mean, what about? Can you put a tortilla barrier on the bottom?
See this? I've been waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and trying to figure out how we get that.
I think that if you fried up a couple of 3 or 4 tortillas
and put them over it
and put them on top of the frico as a barrier, as like a levee against the onslaught of other ingredients, you might win there.
So I may give it another try.
Yeah.
But I still, at least the enchilada pie itself was really good, and the cheese was just kind of.
Alternately, you could just melt a bunch of cheese and make a frico, and then put it on
top of the enchilada pie,
right. Which is a good idea.
But then there was another thing that I made where I found a recipe, and it's similar to something that you made, and I'll show a picture of it. It was a cabbage.
Oh yeah. This is the slow cooked thing, right?
Fall apart caramelized cabbage.
It looks like kimchi right now, a little bit.
It does look, but it's you make a sauce with garlic and tomato paste and onions, and you really cook that down, and then
you cook it on the stove or in the oven, or what do you do?
Cook the sauce on the stove. What you did was you first charred the cabbage slices in the pan on the stove. Then you cook the tomato sauce take them out, cook the tomato sauce, and then nestle the cabbage into the tomato sauce, and then throw it in the oven and bake it for a very, 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 very long time.
What, like 2 hours, 3-4 hours? What do you bake?
About an hour at 400 degrees.
See, I can't make that for another 2 months.
Why not?
It's too hot in here.
Too hot in here. But you told me about something, a fall apart cabbage recipe that you have that doesn't have the sauce, and I think that's actually a little more intriguing to me.
Are you talking about the thing I talked about, the cooked to death vegetables that I talked about the first time?
Yeah.
I did it with cabbage, and it turns out great.
But what's on it? Just nothing?
Olive oil, garlic, salt.
And then just cook it forever.
Yeah, basically, like I think my favorite things to make that way, to cook that way so far have been, believe it or not, celery and Jacinto kale.
Ooh.
Dinosaur kale. Wash it up, chop it up into, like, chop the kale leaves in half, so you get each section's about 4 or 5 inches long. Toss it with crushed and minced garlic, olive oil, salt it, and then start cooking it in the cast iron pan, like on low, and you cook it that way. They say for like 2 hours. I've done it almost 2 hours.
Wow.
After about an hour, it starts to get really good, but then you keep going, and it may not sound tasty, but damn, is it good.
It sounds tasty to me.
So kale and the because sometimes they'll get a little browned, a little bit of caramelization, but it just turns into a whole thing that you want to eat. You want to eat it. What can I say? It's the kind of thing you actually would like to have for dinner.
Wow.
Yeah.
On my walk today, because thank goodness I live in a neighborhood where I can walk without bumping into a lot of maskless people.
Right.
I listened to the Splendid Table podcast from NPR, which I love. And I should announce, we have no sponsors on this show or anything. So anything we're talking about, we're just talking about because we actually like it or use it. We're not plugging anything. But
not that we wouldn't have a sponsor.
I would have a sponsor, and I would plug things.
I mean, you wouldn't say no, just
no. But I was listening to Francis Lamb on the Splendid Table, and he talked about something that I am going to make this week to talk about next week.
Okay.
Which was basically a couple of onions sliced up and a whole bunch of red peppers sliced up, and you just cook them in a Dutch oven over a low heat until they just fall completely apart.
Mm.
Well, before you do that, you take a couple of chicken thighs and you brown them a little bit.
Okay.
Then you take them out of the pan, and
this is getting complicated now. Chicken.
Just brown some chicken thighs, take them out of the pan, then two sliced onions and a ton of sliced up red peppers.
Yeah.
And cook them forever until they just turn into a sauce. And then nestle those chicken thighs back into that sauce and put the lid on and bake it for a while.
Anything that you caramelize is going to be good. It's just the law of the land. It truly is.
So that's what
I'm caramelizing. It's the key to everything.
Everything. So I'm going to try that this week. Although we will, if you email your recipes to us, you can email them to Matthew@MatthewArkinstudio.com. I think I'll probably get around to creating an email for Two Brothers so that we just have an email for this show. But if you send recipes to me, Tony and I may divvy them up, and if we make one of them, we'll talk about your recipe on the show, and we'll say thank you.
Well, if it's good, I don't know.
And we have so many viewers. If we talk about your recipe on the show, you're going to be astoundingly famous. You'll have people knocking on your door. Or maybe not.
Not food related, but before I know we're wrapping up, there's one little tiny fun detail.
Oh, I have hours before I have to be anywhere.
Walter Hill.
Months, actually. I have a couple of months before I have to be anywhere.
I don't have that much
okay.
time. I've got another couple of minutes. That's really what I got. But Walter Hill, love this guy. He made a movie after this after Last Man Standing, a science fiction film, and he took his name off of it. It's sad, but he was so compromised that he took his name off of it. And I think he was the first director that got the new Alan Smithy name, because by the time this movie came around, so many people, directors had been kicked off movies, and then the title said the movie was directed by Alan Smithy, that everybody started to know that that's what it was. So did you know that Alan Smithy is the name that you use, that literally the DGA, the Directors Guild of America, legally says you have to use if you want to take your name off a movie? It's then directed by Alan Smithy.
Like George Spelvin or Georgina Spelvin used to be the actor name.
I didn't know that. Is that true? I didn't know that. That's great.
George Spelvin or Georgina Spelvin was a name that actors used.
Walter Hill was credited as Thomas Lee in this film. He had his name taken off of, and Thomas Lee then became the new Alan Smithy. So if you ever see a movie directed by somebody named Thomas Lee, that person doesn't exist, most likely, unless
oh my goodness,
they are actually named Thomas Lee, in which case they do exist and did direct the movie. I don't mean to be casting aspersions on anybody who's actually named that, but it is the Directors Guild of America's approved
name. So wait, which movie was this?
Let me look this up. I should have that in my note.
Seth Michael May says that the cooked to death veggies rule, that he did Dino Kale.
Oh, great. Dino Kale. Yeah, Seth, Dino Kale was the way to go with that stuff.
And Apropos says that she put her soup on Facebook tonight. Okay, so
we'll have to take a look at that.
We'll have to take a look at that.
I
should warn our viewers that Tony and I are omnivores.
Yeah, I have been other things in my life, but now I am an omnivore. Since the pandemic, more than ever, I basically don't. Sometimes it's not even food. I'm like, I don't know. I'll try this out. I'm bored.
Yeah.
The movie that he took his name off of was called Supernova. He's credited with the name Thomas Lee. Supernova, starring James Spader, Robin Tunney, and who else? Angela Bassett. I saw this movie.
Wow.
Diamond Phillips.
One of the most famous "Take My Name Off the Movie" stories.
I don't know which one you're talking about. I may.
Ben Hecht wanted his name taken off the screenplay for Gone with the Wind.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to promote racist material?
Yeah. He objected to the whole thing. Thought it was racist garbage.
Good for him.
Take my name off it.
How much of it was he one of many writers, or
he wrote the final? The story was that Selznick, David O. Selznick, shut down the production after a week of filming. He shut down the production, but and fired George Cukor, who was directing it. Pulled Victor Fleming off of Wizard of Oz, which only had another week or so, and locked himself in his office with Victor Fleming and Ben Hecht, who had not read the book. And Victor Fleming and David O. Selznick talked and acted out scenes as Ben Hecht rewrote the entire screenplay.
And you know this because you did a play about
it, but it's somewhat a true story.
Yeah, that's really wild. There must be some good books about that.
Yeah,
that was a wonderful play. I forget what was the name of that play.
It was called Moonlight and Magnolias.
That was really fun.
It was a fun play. It was.
Who was in that with you? That was
Douglas Sills played David O. Selznick, and David Rashi played Victor Fleming, and I played Ben Hecht. And Danny Selznick, David O. Selznick's son, came to see the play, and had obviously grown up with his father and knew Ben Hecht and all these people in the play. And he came backstage afterwards and he said to me, "You were really good, but Ben's voice, he had a much deeper voice than you do." And I said to him, "Danny, you're the only person who will ever see this play who knows that."
About it, yeah.
Because nobody else coming to see the play knows him and listens to recordings of him.
All right.
Because he wasn't a movie star or a radio personality.
No.
He was a writer.
Lovely singer, though. Beautiful. I have his records.
Do you have any food plans for the coming week?
I have a couple of things that I'm toying with. I saw this recipe for something called clafouti, which is a dessert.
I've heard of it. I don't think I've ever had it.
I had it once ages ago, but for some reason it's referenced in a play. It's referenced in a play called God of Carnage, and ever since I saw that play, and that was a while ago, I keep on coming back to clafouti. They talk about it. They have it in the play. It looks really good. It's a strange, crazy name, and I wanted to try it. It's cherries, I think, and kind of a souffle vibe, I think. Around here, we call it P&O Poksa Kilbasa in the pan with peppers. And Vet Bowles is talking about the peppers and onions.
Oh, I might have to maybe do that this week. Clafouti, I think clafouti was actually the B-side of the Buddy Hackett single Shapoopy. Was it?
That's a reference that I can't believe I even know, but I do. Why do I know that? Why and how do I know that? Because Shapoopy's actually a thing.
Yeah, it's a song, Shapoopy. I did not know that it was Buddy Hackett. I just looked it up.
Buddy Hackett. Do a YouTube deep dive there. That's a hell of a dive.
I actually have a Buddy Hackett story. Didn't happen to me. I never met Buddy Hackett. But back in the days when I was practicing law, my old boss was doing one of those, celebrity amateur fundraiser golf tournaments, and was in a foursome with Buddy Hackett
on a golf
thing to fundraise for some charity. So he's playing 18 holes with Buddy Hackett and two other guys. And he said they got to like the seventh green or something like that, and Buddy Hackett hit a ball way off into the woods and had to go looking for it. So they're waiting for him. He goes off into the woods, and they're waiting what seems like a long time. And he said all of a sudden Buddy Hackett came running out of the woods, stark naked, screaming, "Indians! Indians!" and then ran back into the woods.
Oh, and my God.
Came out a couple of minutes later with his ball and his clothes on and never said anything about it.
That's an incredibly strange story.
It's like, what? Oh, okay.
Yeah. How to ruin a nice walk? Go play golf, and then go with Buddy Hackett.
I wish I had been there to see that one. So what are we doing next week?
Well, we did decide on a movie, didn't we?
We did decide on a movie.
Would you like to remind me
You forgot what it was. We're going to discuss Don't Ask Us Why. There's no rhyme or reason to this. It's because we can and we want to. We're going to discuss Against All Odds.
Yes, that's right. We chose that. That's right. Yeah, no, there's no rhyme. There's no reason. Mostly the criteria would be like, I guess for this first round, we're going with films from like late 80s, 90s period.
Yeah.
Maybe stick with that. Movies that we haven't seen in a while or don't really know well. Maybe sticking with kind of like guy actiony, R-rated movies from that period, I don't know.
And having to watch Rachel Ward for a while isn't the worst way to spend an evening.
She's
and
lovely.
Listening to some Phil Collins.
How bad could all of that be? I think it could be pretty bad. I honestly think it could be pretty bad. I don't know for sure. It might be great. Jeff Bridges is a great actor.
He's a great actor. James Woods is in it.
James Woods is in it.
James. I did.
You said that. And I'm not going to correct you.
Could we read back from the transcript, please? I believe the conversation went like this. Jeff Bridges is a great actor. James Woods
is in it.
And you know who else is in it? Another underrated actor and an underrated football player. Your friend and mine, although neither of us has ever met him, Alex Carris.
Alex Carris.
Yes.
Why do I draw a blank?
And Alex Carris is also in he was a football player. Alex Carris played the father on what was the TV show with the minuscule child that was adopted?
I don't want to have this conversation anymore.
Alex Carris, come on.
Hold on. He was in Blazing Saddles. Yes.
Yes, he played Mongo.
He plays Mongo in Blazing Saddles. Okay.
And he plays.
He was in more movies than you and I put together.
Yeah, he played the. What's in Victor Victoria. He plays James Garner's bodyguard.
I don't remember that movie enough to know whether he was in it or not. I believe you. I am seeing Porky's here, so we might want to do that.
Oh, wow.
Porky's is an 80s film, but maybe we do well. No, Against All Odds. Come on. Let's do it. It's
Webster. Webster was the TV series, and he played the father.
Was on Webster.
He played Webster's dad.
I have no memory of that at all. I'm gonna plead insanity. So we're doing
Against All Odds.
Kind of like, I don't know if Against All Odds is a guy movie. I don't even know what that means anymore. Back when this came out, there were guy movies.
Yeah.
That was a thing.
Yeah.
Now it's not really a thing anymore, but it's kind of interesting to go back and look at these time capsules and see what people are interested in. Yeah. It's going to be beautiful.
So for everybody who's watching, thank you for watching. Please like this video. Help keep the lights on here. Even though we're not making any money on this, we're doing it for fun. But like it. It helps us get more followers. Spread the word about it. Seth Michael May is letting us know that Alex Carris was on Webster. That's right. But spread the word about it. Subscribe to our channel and make sure you hit the bell icon. You will get notifications of our other live streams. And on Monday, on my other show, Tips and Techniques for Actors, Authors, and Storytellers, I have Jack Daniel, not Jack Daniels, but Jack Daniel, who is a very esteemed voiceover artist here in LA, does a lot of narration, a lot of commercials, and a lot of movie trailers. And he's going to talk about that industry.
He does movie trailers. That's the real deal.
Yeah. He's so join us for that on Monday at 5:00, and then come back next Wednesday and join me and Tony at 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern, as we talk about Against All Odds and whatever other silly food we cook. Is there anything else, brotherly, that we need to cover before we? You don't even want to talk to me anymore. You're over me.
You were pretty hard. Fistful of Dollars got a pretty, Leone got some smackdown tonight from you.
Well, here's the thing. There's stuff that you say is, masterful act where all the pieces come together, like a movie like The Godfather, right? Where it's like, what are you going to say? Everything comes together. And then we all have stuff that we love because there's an aspect of it that speaks to something that is fascinating to us personally, right? So there's these slices of the art with.
No, I disagree. There are things that I like that are objectively good, and things that you have crackpot ideas about. No, I'm. That's maybe unfair,
right? Because I still adore Star Trek. Now, coming back to it years later, obviously I look at it and I say, there's a lot about this that is utter crap, but there's still these aspects of it that fascinate me and that I love.
I would argue, though, that for cinema, like Leone's cinema,
right?
Acting is so far removed from what the main point of the whole exercise is that I think you're putting too much stock. Now, you called the film racist and completely unacceptable, and I can't answer to that. I don't think
it's racist and completely unacceptable.
You said it was.
Can we play the tape back, please? Did I say unacceptable?
Well, I felt unaccepted, but Wait,
I want to say something. I love you.
Don't
like
please.
A brother.
Okay. This is getting tough even on the third one. All I'm saying is that, there's acting forward thinking is sometimes the wrong way to go. Sometimes that's not what the movie's even remotely about.
True. And I will declare to you and everybody who ever watches this show that in terms of cinematic technique, I'm not going to see or understand the stuff that you see and understand about it.
Well, I wouldn't say that it's even that so much as that I think maybe it's because I made a movie, and I know the things that happen when you're making those decisions on a set, and you go through that experience, and the things that are important to you when you're making a movie and you're talking to your director of photography and you're designing it and you're coming up with how the thing looks and feels and is edited. The acting is a part of that conversation, but it's only a part of that conversation. There's so many more things that you're discussing and working out. And from that standpoint, just as an exercise in talent and set design and editing and color palette and all kinds of just visual aspect of storytelling. That movie knocked me out. Like, I was really surprised. I was, you know, a little older now. I hadn't seen it in a long time, and I was really really affected by the level of care and imagination and really bravura choices that went into, you know, this movie that for all of its flaws, and it has them, to go back and see what it was at the time that it came out, and what an audience had never seen before, and to see a genre completely turned on its head and revisited and completely changed, and work that way. That's quite a feat. It's quite a feat. So I do love the movie for those reasons. But you know, you're absolutely. I can't say you're wrong about your point at all. The acting is not the high suit, and it certainly is. It doesn't hold up to scrutiny today in terms of its portrayal of people. It really doesn't.
What I want to do is I want to go back sometime in the next couple of days and watch The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly in reference to this, because The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was later, right?
It was the third.
And I don't know enough about Sergio Leone. How much had he made by this point? How much had he done by this point in his career?
He was. I think this was maybe his first feature that he directed. He was well known as a second unit director and an AD.
Oh, okay. Because what I'm interested in seeing is what happened between this and Il Buono, Il Malo, Il Gatto, or right? Is that what it's called?
You're talking The Good, the Bad, the Ugly?
Yeah. Il Buono, Il Malo, Il Brutto, I think, right?
Well, I can't speak to your pronunciation, but that's exactly the right thing to say. That was the title of the film.
Yeah. Because I just love that poster. I love the poster in Italian.
It was not his first film. His first movie was a movie called Colossus of Rhodes, but Fistful of Dollars was Leone's only his second feature.
Only a second feature. So I'm interested in seeing what happened with him a little later.
Not a lot, because he only directed 8 movies. I mean, there's stuff. His style, like Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, you could probably jump ahead to Once Upon a Time in the West and see like kind of the culmination of his Western style.
Because I used the circle shootout scene in class.
In Good, Bad, and the Ugly at the end.
Good, Bad, and the Ugly, which is just spectacular.
Yeah, yeah. The standoff.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
And actually in that scene, interestingly enough, 3 actors who speak English.
Still dubbed.
I know.
Still badly dubbed. It's amazing. Yeah.
All right. Well, folks, we're going to wrap it up. Please subscribe to this channel. Like us, subscribe, click the bell icon so that you get notifications of other live streams that come up. And we will see you next week with Against All Odds. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
We love having you here. Good night, everybody.
It's been fun. Good night, buddy.
Good night.